A commanding Game 1 win for the Boston Celtics over the Toronto Raptors, 112-94 to take a 1-0 series lead. I'm Sarah Goodwill here with Jimmy Toscano, Josue, Pavon, and Bobby Manning. Guys, a little bit surprising how dominant the Celtics were in this game, really from the start. Not a enormously impressive offensive performance, but really good on D. All 5 starters ended the game in double digits. Tatum and Smart with 21 points apiece, a game high. Was Marcus Smart really the difference maker in this one, especially with Gordon Hayward's absence?
Yeah, he needed to be, and he came out and hit that first shot, and you knew he was going to start rolling all night, hit his first 3 shots, and you see Toronto overextend on the defense to the right side when they get that first possession going, and Smart gets wide open shots off of that. He's going to have the weakest defender on him the whole series whenever he's out there, and after that 10 of 30, I said he's going to be the guy. He's going to fill those open spot shots that Hayward left behind, and he did it in this game.
Yeah, it's a huge plus to have someone like Marcus Smart in that starting lineup, and for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, obviously, offensively, that was a huge spark that a lot of us didn't necessarily expect out of Marcus, but defensively, he's the anchor of that defense. You know, the Celtics did a really good job of rattling Toronto's best guys like Siakam, Lowry. You know, the defense that they put on those guys, I mean, they're so important for the rest of the team. Obviously, the Toronto Raptors have more than 2 guys that can go off, but they're the ones that really get things going. And I think the Celtics did a good job defensively of rattling those 2 and really forced Toronto to play catch up from the beginning and throughout.
Yeah, I think I'll say he's the X factor. You know, that's kind of like my word for Marcus Smart, and not only in this game, but in this series. I mean, when Gordon Hayward went down, everybody said it. Well, so much of that production has to fall on Marcus Smart now. And if he fails to produce on that end, on the offensive end, we know he's going to produce defensively, but if he fails to produce at all offensively, it's going to be hard for them to keep up with a team like the Toronto Raptors. They can get by a team like Philly because they were just listless at that point. But you really need an all-hands-on-deck mentality, and I thought Marcus Smart totally answered the bell today. I mean, he came out firing, and when he hit those first couple of threes, you're like, okay, if this is the Marcus Smart they're getting today, it's going to be extremely difficult for the Raptors to beat the Celtics because they're very deep in their starting lineup. When you slide Marcus Smart in and he's effective, I mean, you already know it, Tatum, Brown, Kemba, and we haven't even mentioned his name, Daniel Tice, my other X factor, because this guy, you know, he had to come up and have the hardest matchup of all against the Sixers. And listen, Embiid did his thing. But Daniel Tice is huge for the Celtics team against a big Raptor squad, and I thought he totally came to play today, 15 rebounds.
Giving him a whole video, too, so check that out. I'll say on Smart, too, took the second charge on Siakam. That was huge.
Yes, huge. Yeah, absolutely. And now the Raptors' only 2 losses of the bubble are to the Celtics by a combined 40 points. Not a standout game by one. It's not like Tatum dominated, Kemba went off. It was just a really balanced attack. Do you think it's time to change the predictions from Celtics in 7 to maybe 6 or 5? Or did Toronto just have one of their game 1 slip-ups that they are notorious for? They are notorious for starting slow in series, and they can turn things around. We know that. But are the Celtics just better?
Game 1 and today, in this environment especially, I think is overrated. We've seen Portland take game 1. We've seen the Mavericks play and good enough to win in that series.
Comparing the Celtics to an 8th seed. Okay.
No, I'm just saying. In most series, you lose home court and you have to win 4 or 6 after that. And this is just 7 straight neutral court games. So I know Toronto can adjust. Nick Nurse didn't have a great game today, but I think they'll slide up Ibaka's minutes, which went well in this one. Siakam, if he doesn't have 3 fouls in the first few minutes there, that's something they're going to have to adjust. It's a whole different game because then they're playing Ibaka and Gasol together for big stretches of this one. They got taken out of this game in the first quarter, and I think they're going to be able to bounce back. I'm still sticking with Toronto in this series, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not sticking with Toronto in this series, but I do see the Celtics going 7 games against this team. This team is far from done. The Toronto Raptors, they just have to make those adjustments to get those 2 guys that I mentioned before going, but also to get the second unit. I'm still giving them the edge here against the Celtics, regardless of what the Celtics did in game 1. I still like the Raptors' second unit better than the Celtics' second unit, but the adjustments that Nick Nurse is going to make will obviously force Brad Stevens to make some switches as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in game 2, but I don't think we'll see a blowout by any means, in game 2. Definitely not.
I had Celtics in 7, but I said I wouldn't be surprised if it was Celtics in 6. So that's looking great. I'm not changing that. I know Bobby's going from Raptors in 6 to Raptors in 5 after what he saw today because he's just a Celtics hater and a Raptors lover. So I know there's no changing his mind. No, I'm just kidding. But no, listen, I like what I saw from the Celtics today. If you're the Raptors, you got to look at that box score on the Celtics side and say, wow, they killed us from all angles today. There wasn't one guy that went from start to finish. I mean, they were just a well-balanced attack. And if you're the Raptors, you can say, okay, what can we do to slow a couple of these guys down, get them off of rhythm, like the Celtics did to Siakam. I mean, took him out of the game right off the bat. And the Raptors never had like a plan B for that. It felt like they were just reeling from that point on and just treading water. You know, they didn't have anything to answer what the Celtics were doing offensively and certainly on defensively.
To quote Ty Lue from back a couple years ago too, they threw them a loop with Semi Ojeleye. That Semi Ojeleye loop always gets the other teams, and it did again today. He was solid.
Well, we've given the Celtics their fair share of criticism for their lack of big men this entire season. We're going to give them their well-deserved love today in a separate video. So you can check that out as well as all of our Celtics postseason coverage on our website at clnsmedia.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel over at Celtics All Access.